Welcome back to another episode of how to build an RTS in Unity. Today, we'll be tackling one of the most fun parts of an RTS, which is the battle simulation. This is definitely my favorite part of RTS gameplay and the one I find most engaging. I'm excited to show you what's involved so you can finally show your friends some actual gameplay on the game you've been working on tirelessly while following along. This will likely be a longer episode with a lot more code, so let's dive right in. In the last episode, we set up the foundations for the attacking range behavior, and we're now able to detect when a unit is in range. So let's pick up where we left off in the unit script. We're going to start off by defining a few variables. First, let's import unityengine.ui so we can interact with some of the elements on the HUD. So we'll type using unityengine.ui. Then, let's define some serialized fields. The first one we'll do is the health bar. So we'll type serialized field, private, and here we're going to use a slider. We'll call it health bar. And the next one we'll do will be for the max health. So we'll go serialized field, private. This will be an int, and we'll call it max health. Then another serialized field, private, int, current health. And another one for damage per shot. This will also be an int. And then we'll define a float for the attack cooldown time. So serialized field, private, float, attack cooldown time. And let's give that a default value of 1. Then we'll create another float for attack cooldown time remaining. We're simply serializing all of these so that we can see the value in the editor. And we'll set this one to 0. Then let's define a boolean for is attacking. And we'll set that to false. Then let's reference a particle system for the shooting effect. And lastly, let's add one more, which is a boolean for is alive. Now let's go link all of these up in the editor. So hit save and let's go to Unity. Let's go to our project tab and let's go and open our base SWAT guy prefab. We can open the inspector and here's where we can enter all the values. So we'll give this guy a default max health of 100, start him off with 100. Let's say damage per shot to start with can be 20. 1 is fine, 0, false, 0, attacking is false, and let's bring in a shooting effect. So for the shooting effect, let's go to the Unity asset store, and let's type WarFX. You'll see I have already added it. You can just click on WarFX, and you can simply add it, and then click on Open in Unity. I've already downloaded it. You'll need to click on download and then import. Then with the animation tab open, select the animation for firing. Let's scrub slightly and let's go back to our project tab. Expand WarFX under JMO assets. Go to effects, fire, gray smoke, and let's drag and drop the gray smoke over here. Let's make it a child of the rifle. Then let's delete the smoke and the sparkles. Go to the inspector. Let's check looping. Hit restart. Let's get a top view. Put it in position. Then let's modify the velocity over lifetime. We'll set this to 0, 0. Set this to 4, 4. And this to minus 0.7. And minus 0.7. We can drag this over here, bring it down a little, and let's adjust the duration. We'll set it to something like 0.5, uncheck looping and restart. Then let's adjust the simulation speed to something like 5, hit restart, Maybe 3 is better. That's okay for now. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. Let us disable this. And let's go to SWAT guy. And where we have shooting effect, let's drag and drop this over there. Great. Now we can go back and hit save. Then let's go back to our code. All right, now let's head to our start method. And over here we can set isAlive to true. And we'll also want to set current health to equal max health. With that done, let's head to the fixed update method. And before the attacking range check, let's first check whether the unit is actually alive. So we'll say if is alive. And let's scroll down to check for units in range. And over here, let's remove the look at behavior and instead create 2 methods. One will be called stop moving. And the other will be called handle attack logic. Then let's go and call those over here. And handle attack logic. And if the unit's not in range, instead of clearing the target, let's move towards the target. So move to destination and we'll go current target.transform.position. The next thing we'll need to do is to make sure that we clear the target if the unit is no longer alive. So we'll say else current target is null. Okay, now let's create another method called perform attack. And another one called take damage. We'll take 2 parameters. The first will be a selectable object called aggressor. And we'll also take an int called damage taken. And let's head back to the perform attack method. And in here, let's get the target unit and make sure they're still alive. So unit target unit equals current target dot get this unit. And we'll say if the target unit is alive. Now let's open up the game manager script, scroll to the top, and let's set up 2 layer masks here. We'll set up one for the unit layer, and another one that we'll use at a later point for the building layer. Then let's define 2 Boolean functions. Scroll a bit down and we'll type private bool is on unit layer and another one for is on building layer. Both of these will take in the parameter of layer mask, and we'll just call it other selectable. And we'll say if the other selectable bit shifted and unit layer not equal to 0, then we'll return true. Otherwise we'll return false. And we'll do the same thing for the building layer just while we're here, except we'll change this to building layer. All right. Then let's scroll back up to where we detect the right mouse button click. Okay, from here, we're going to want to extract this into its own method. So we'll select the for loop, right click, quick actions and refactoring, extract method, and we'll call this handle right clicked at position. And we'll take in a parameter of vector3. And over here, we'll get the mouse wheel position. We'll want to know whether we've right-clicked on a unit or not. So let's do a raycast to detect whether there are any selectable objects at the mouse position. So we'll type raycast hit. We'll define array, and we'll say camera.main.screen point to ray, and we'll go input.mouse position. Then from here we'll say if physics .raycast ray out raycast hit. So mathf dot infinity, and we'll want to do this on the unit layer. Then we'll say if raycast hit dot transform dot try get out selectable object, and we'll come back here in a minute. For now, let's say else move to this position. Then you'll see we're currently calling get mouse position on each call, which isn't really efficient because we're running a raycast each time. So what we'll do instead is use this position over here. We can delete this local variable, and we can simply use the incoming parameter. And the next thing we'll want to do is to ensure that the unit is alive before he starts moving. So let's go back to the unit script. We'll scroll down to here, and let's make a public bool is unit alive. And we'll just return is alive. Then we can go back to the game manager, and let's say if selected units I dot is unit alive, then he can start moving. Otherwise, we'll want to remove him from the selection. We're also going to want to clear the target each time the unit receives a move instruction. So let's go back to the unit script, and let's go to clear target, and let's make this public. We'll do the same for set target. And let's head back to our game manager script. And now we'll say selected units I.clear target, and we can hit save. Now we'll want to create a local method called target selectable. So let's go private void target selectable. We'll take in a selectable object as a parameter. We'll just call it selectable. And over here, we'll say target selectable. And we'll pass in the selectable object. Then we'll want to detect what kind of selectable we have. So let's go back to the selectable script. So let's create a public function which returns selectable type, get selectable type, and we'll simply return the selectable type. We can hit save, go back to our game manager, and now we can say if selectable.type get selectable type, and we'll say equals unit. Then we're going to loop through all of our selected units, and we're going to target that unit. So we'll say for int I equals 0, I is lower than selected units dot count I plus plus, and we'll first check whether that unit is alive, and we'll say if selected units I dot is alive, then selected units I dot set target, and we'll pass in the new selectable. Lastly, let's do the standard behavior of removing him from the selected units if he's no longer alive. So else selected units dot remove at index and save. Okay, before we move on, let's change both of these methods to public so that we can access them from other scripts. And then let's head over to our attacking range script. From here, on the onTrigger method, let's go and check whether the other collider is a unit. So we'll say if GameManager.instance is on unit layer. We'll say other.gameObject.layer. Before we continue, let's change the type of list from transform to unit. And over here, let's say if other.tryGetComponent out unit, and we'll just write other unit. And then we can say unitsinrange.add other unit. And let's delete this. And let's go do the same thing for onTrigger exit. And let's say if GameManager.instance.is on unit layer other.gameObject.layer. Then let's write if other.tryGetComponent out unit other unit. And now we can check whether the list contains this unit. So we'll say if unitsinrange.contains other unit. Then we'll say unitsinrange.remove other unit. Then we can just return this as a list of units, and we can fix this over here. If we go to our list of errors, we'll see that we're now getting 2 errors. You can just double click on the first one, and that brings us back to the check for units in range method. That's okay because we're actually going to refactor this. We no longer want to stop moving and handle attack logic as soon as we're in range of a unit. So we're going to delete this over here, and let's change this to unit. We can also take out the get selectable object, because now we can simply say units in range dot selectable object, and then we'll reference the units in range dot selectable object. Okay, then let's go and update the clear target method. So currently we say current target is null. We're simply going to add is attacking and set that to false. And let's remove the animation parameter from set target because that logic is now being handled separately. And then we can flesh out the stop moving method. So we'll say is moving equals false. Animator.setBool is running, and we'll set that to false. And let's also make sure that the navmesh agent is stopped. Then let's go to the handle attack logic method. In here, we'll first check whether we have a target. If we do, we'll look at that target. So we'll say transform.lookAt current target.transform and vector3.up. Then we'll say if not is attacking is true. Now let's say if attack cooldown time remaining is lower than or equal to 0, then we'll perform the attack. Otherwise, we'll say attack cooldown time remaining minus equals time.delta time. Now we can go back to our fixed update method. And over here, we can delete the second part. Then let's check whether we currently have a target. So we'll say if current target is null. And if it is null and we're not moving, then check for units in range. Now let's head back to our attacking range script. And let's create a method to let us know whether a unit is in range. So over here, we'll say public bool check if unit is in range. We'll take in a unit and say target unit. And we're simply going to say return units in range dot contains target unit. Then we'll also want to initialize our units in range list on start. So bring up the start method and say units in range equals new list of unit. Then let's head back to our unit script. Now, if the unit is alive and we have a target, then we're going to want to check whether our target is in range. So we'll say if attacking range dot check if unit is in range, and we'll say current target dot get this unit. Then we'll want to stop moving and handle the attack logic. Otherwise, if the current target dot get this unit is alive, then we're going to want to move to their location so we can get in range. So we'll say move to destination, current target dot transform dot position. Otherwise, we'll want to clear the target since they're no longer alive. So we'll say else clear target. Now back on the perform attack method, let's write if attacking range dot check if unit is in range target unit. Then let's set the animator bool for is firing to true. And let's call target unit dot take damage selectable object and damage per shot. We'll also want to reset the attack cooldown time to the base cooldown time. And we'll also want to show the shooting effect. So we'll say shooting effect dot play. And let's go down to the take damage method. First, we'll want to check whether the unit is still alive. So we'll say if is alive. And if he is, let's check what our health is and make sure that it's bigger than 0. And if it is, we'll say current health minus equals damage taken. And we'll want to update the health bar. So let's create another method called private void update health bar. And let's say health bar dot value equals, let's cast a float of current health divided by a float of max health, and that'll give us a percentage. And let's call that over here update health bar. And let's say if current health is now lower than or equal to 0, then we'll want to handle him dying. So we'll create another method called private void die, and we'll call it over here. We'll want to do another check and say else. We'll know that over here his health is no longer bigger than or equal to 0, so in this case he should also die. Then in the die method, let's disable a bunch of stuff. So let's set the nav mesh agent to is stopped equals true. Let's disable the nav mesh agent. Then let's get the collider. Call it my collider equals get component collider. And let's say my collider.enabled equals false. Let's get the health bar, game object, and set that to active false. and let's say is alive equals false, and animator.setTrigger die. Now we are going to destroy the game object as well, but we'll want the animation to play first, so that's why we need to handle all of this before that happens. Okay, we're almost there. Let's head back to the editor, and let's go and adjust our animator. So we'll go to project, animation, SWAT guy controller, and we're going to need an animation for his death. So let's head over to Mixamo. You'll want to make sure that you still have the SWAT guy selected, and let's go over to animations, and we can type rifle death. You can choose any one of these. I'll probably take this one and hit download. Okay, once that's completed, we can close our browser. We'll go over here, right click, import new asset. We'll go to our downloads, and we can double click on our animation, expand it over here, click on the animation and press Ctrl D to duplicate, rename that to SWAT guy dying, and we can just drag and drop this into the SWAT guy folder in animations. Then we will drag and drop it here after double clicking the SWAT guy controller, and let's create a parameter as a trigger, and we'll call that die. Then from here we'll go right click on any state, make transition, and click over there, click here, inspector, and add the parameter as die. Great, so now during any animation state, he's going to go straight from there to dying if this condition is met. Okay, let's head back to our IDE, and in the unit script, let's head to the top, and let's give max health a default value of 100, and the default damage per shot, let's set that to 20. Okay, then let's head back over to our selectable object script, and let's scroll down to on mouse enter. Now let's check whether the selectable type is in fact a unit. And if it is, we'll want to make sure that the unit is still alive. And only in that case will we want to show the hover indicator. Then we'll go to our on mouse over method, and let's make sure that the unit is still alive. So we'll say if this unit dot is alive, and only then do we want to select them. We'll want to do the same in the game manager script. So select unit, and we'll want to ensure that the unit's actually alive if we're going to add them. So we'll say if unit dot is alive, okay, let's hit save, go back to Unity. Let's click on our game manager script, and let's make sure that we assign the unit layer to only contain units, and we don't yet have a building layer, but we'll come back to this part. Then let's go to project, prefabs, let's double click on our SWAT guy, and we'll want to give him a health bar. So we'll right click, UI, let's go to slider, we'll hit F2 to rename, and let's call this health bar. Let's go to the inspector, and let's set the canvas to world space and reset the position. Hit F, and there's our enormous health bar. We can press R to scale it down a whole bunch. W, F. Let's expand it over here. Let's take away the handle. Let's change the fill to be green. Let's click on the health bar, set the value to full so that we can see how it looks. Then we can adjust this over here. And we'll want the health bar to go the other way. So click on health bar and let's go right to left. Test it out. It looks better. Scale it a little more. And let's click on SWAT guy. And let's take the health bar and drop it there. You'll see that he currently has 0 for max health. So let's set that to 100, damage per shot to 20. With that done, let's just click on our attack effect and we'll actually want that to be enabled, but we won't want it to play on awake. Okay, and then let's go onto the particle effect. And you'll see by default it has a script which causes it to auto-destruct. Let's just remove that script and go back and hit save. Okay, a mistake I can see I've made is in the unit script, I'm using is firing, but in the animation controller, I've got is attacking. So we'll probably want to change that. So we'll go back into the unit script and let's change this to is attacking. And let's head back to the editor. Let's go to our game and press play. Now let's bring the units in range. And you'll see they start attacking each other. And they die when the health is empty. Now if we start it again, you'll see that we're not currently able to right click on a unit to target them. So let's go and do that next. Let's head back to our IDE, go to the game manager and handle right click that position. And the other thing you'll notice is that our health bars are not facing the camera. So you'll see the health bar rotates with the unit. So let's go back into our editor and on the update method, let's say health bar dot transform dot rotation equals quaternion dot identity. And let's refactor this method slightly. So first we'll want to check whether our unit's still alive. So if is alive. We can also move this over here and we'll check if the unit is moving and there's no path pending and our current target is null. Then if the distance remaining is lower than the stopping distance, then we can call our new stop moving method. Okay, then let's move back to our unit script and let's go to our move to destination method and let's make sure that we take our nav mesh agent and say is stopped equals false. And as a last step, let's remove the clear target call. And we can also update the animator to set bool is attacking false. As a last step, we'll want to ensure that units who have died are no longer considered in range. So to do that, let's go to the attacking range script and let's bring up the fixed update method. And in here, we're going to run a reverse for loop so we can remove any units who are no longer alive. So we'll say for int I equals units in range dot count -1, and we'll say I is bigger than or equal to 0 and I minus. Then we'll say if units in range I is alive and of course we want to make sure he's not alive, and if he's not alive then we'll say units in range dot remove at I. One last thing that we should fix is on the game manager script under target selectable. Because we are removing one of the elements, we should probably change this so that it is in reverse. So let's start with I equals selected units.count -1, and we'll say I is bigger than or equal to 0, and we'll say I minus. This will ensure that we can remove this without affecting the for loop being run. All right, that should be it. Quite a lot of code. Let's go try it out. Let's hit play. And we can target this unit. You'll see he attacks him. We can change targets to this guy. We can run away, he'll chase him. We can attack him back and he dies. Not yet perfect, but I think we're definitely getting there. We'll also want to destroy these, but we'll handle the rest of that in the next episode. Okay, great. So now you can target some units, they can have a little battle, you can run away, you can see the chase logic works, and the death logic works as well. There have been quite a lot of changes to the project in this episode, so I will be uploading the whole project to Google Drive, and I will be adding a link in the description. You'll also see a link for the Steam page for my game, Fungal Front. I'll really appreciate it if you could take a look and potentially wishlist it if you're interested. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.